Now you've done problems 7 through 12. Let's see how you did. From now on, when I ask you what type of problem it is, if you think it's a curveball, you can tell me right away. 50 questions on the test. 35 were right. What was your percent score? Do you know the percent?
No.
Then you know it has to be type
2.
And you know it's not a curveball because I've told you the number that are right. 35 is what percent of 50? We need to make a fraction. What number will be on the bottom?
50.
50 and 35 on the top. Can we raise this fraction to higher terms so that we can get 100 on the bottom?
Yes.
50 into 100 is
2.
and 35 times 2 will give you 70. How much percent is 70 hundredths?
70%.
70%. 70% was your score, and it was a type 2 problem. "50 questions on the test. 80% was your score. How many wrong? Do you know the percent?
Yes.
Do you know the whole thing?
Yes.
Do you know the part of the whole?"
No.
So this one is what type?
1 curveball.
Yes, it's a curveball because it asks you how many wrong. Type 1 curveball. Let's make our number sentence. 80% of 50 is what? What is 80% as a fraction in lowest terms?
4/5.
4/5 times 50 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 50 is?
10.
4 times 10 is?
40.
40 equals x. Is 40 the number right or the number wrong?
Right.
It is the number right because that came from the percentage score. We know that there were 50 questions on the test and 40 were right, so we subtract to find out how many were wrong. What is 50 take away 40?
10.
10 were wrong. So the answer is 10. This time we took care of the curveball at the very end of the problem when we subtracted. You could have taken care of it at the beginning if you had wanted to. .62½ was your score. 10 questions were right. How many questions were on the test? Do you know the percent?
Yes.
Do you know the whole thing?
No.
That means that this problem is type number
3.
Type number 3, and it is not unless you're told the number of questions that are right. 10 is 62½ of what? 10 equals, from what fraction do we get 62 and 1/2%?
5/8.
5/8. That's one of our memory percents. 10 equals 5/8 x. Now we need to multiply both sides of the equation by the
Flip-flop.
8 over 5 and 8 over 5. These cancel away and leave us just plain
X.
5 into 5 is,
1.
5 into 10 is,
2.
8 times 2,
16.
16. 10 is 62 and 1/2% of 16. How many questions on the test? 16. Type 3. "40 questions on the test. 75% was your score. How many right? Do you know the percent? Do you know the whole thing?
Yes.
Do you know the part of the whole?"
No.
That one. And it is not a curveball because you're asked how many right. 75% of 40 is what? What is 75% as a fraction in lowest terms?
3/4.
3/4 times 40 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
4 into 4 is?
1.
4 into 40 is?
10.
3 times 10 is?
30.
30 equals x. 75% of 40 is?
30.
How many right?
30.
A straightforward type 1 problem. (87.5% was your score. 3 questions were wrong. How many questions on the test? What type problem is this one?
3 curveball.
Yes, 3 curveball. 3 because it asks how many were on the test, the whole thing. Curveball because I told you the number of questions that were wrong. And when it's a type 3 curveball, we have to handle the curveball first. If we had gotten everything right, we would have 100%. But we got 87.5% right. How can we tell what percent was wrong? What do we do with these two numbers?
Subtract.
And if we subtract, we will find that it's 12.5%. And an easy way to do that is just to remember that since 87.5% comes from what fraction?
7/8.
And since 100% is how many eighths?
8/8.
8/8. What's left will be 1/8, which is 12.5%. After a while, you should be able to memorize that if you see 87.5% and it's a curveball problem, that when you subtract from 100, you'll have 12.5%. You should begin to know those that well. 3 is 12.5% of what? 3 equals, and we already know what fraction that comes from, We have it right here, 1/8. 3 equals 1/8 x. I need to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
8 over 1, and here we'll just write 8. These cancel away, leaving me on this side just
X.
on the other side. 8 times 3 is
24.
3 is 12.5% of
24.
how many questions on the test?
24.
It was a type 3 curveball, and we handled the curveball first. "80 questions on the test. 30 questions wrong. What was your percentage score?" What type problem is this one?
2 curveball.
2 because it says what percent, and curveball because you were told the number of questions that were wrong. This time we'll handle the curveball first. There were 80 questions on the test total. There were 30 that were wrong. What do we do with those two numbers to find out how many were right?
Subtract.
And what is 80 take away 30?
50.
50. 50 is what percent of 80? We have to make a fraction. Which number should we put on the bottom?
80.
80 with 50 on the top, and we can reduce it by hitting top and bottom with 10. Now we have 5/8. 5/8 is how much percent? %. was your score. 45 questions were right. How many wrong? This problem has a hidden question. What is the hidden question?
How many questions on the test?
How many questions on test? We can't find out how many are wrong until we know how many questions are on the test. We knew how many were right, but we can't find out how many wrong until we know the total. What type of problem is this?
2.
This is not 2, it's type 3, because we need to find out how many questions on the test. We need to know the whole thing. "45 is 90% of what?" 45 equals, what is 90% as a fraction in lowest terms?
9/10.
45 is 9/10 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
10 over 9. 10 over 9. These cancel away, leaving us
X.
9 into 9 is
1.
5.
5.
10 times 5.
50.
50 equals x. 45 is 90% of 50. How many questions on the test?
50.
If there are 50 questions on the test and 45 of them were right, how many were wrong?
5.
5. 5 questions. A hidden question. You had to find out the whole thing before you could subtract to find out how many were wrong. %, was your score. 6 questions wrong. How many right? Again, there is a hidden question. What is the hidden question?
How many questions on the test?
How many questions? Since we need to find out how many questions, this one is type
3.
And since we are told the number that was wrong, it's type 3,
Curveball.
type 3 curveball. And since it's type 3 curveball, we have to handle the curveball first. 100% if you had gotten them all right. 80% was your score that you got right. How much percent was wrong?
20%.
20%. 6 is 20% of what? 6 equals what fraction does 20% come from?
1/5.
1/5 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
5 over 1, and here we'll just write the 5. These cancel away, and we're left with,
X.
and 5 times 6 is,
30.
6 is 20% of,
30.
there are 30 questions on the test. 6 were wrong. What do I do with those two numbers to find out how many questions were right?
Subtract.
And what is 30 take away 6?
24.
24. First we had to find how many questions were on the test, and that was 30. Then we could subtract to find out that 24 questions were right. The next section has 8 problems very much like these and in a mixed up order. Try. Who's in the class? Let's find out. 40 children are in the class. 20% are girls. How many boys? What type problem is this one?
1 curveball.
1 curveball. Type 1 because we know the percent and we know the whole thing. It's a curveball because it tells us that 20% are girls, but it asks how many boys. When we have a type 1 curveball problem, we have a choice as to whether to handle the curveball first or afterwards. I think this time we'll do it first. 100% would be the whole class. 20% are girls. what do we do with those two numbers to find out what percent is boys?
Subtract.
And 100% take away 20% is
80%.
80%. Now we have a percent that matches our question. They're both about boys. 80% of 40 is what? What fraction does 80% come from?
4/5.
4/5 times 40 over 1 equals x. We can cancel. 5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 40 is?
8.
4 times 8 is?
32.
32 equals x. 80% of 40 is?
32.
How many boys?
32.
32. "50 children in the class. 20 are girls." Type of problem is this one.
2.
Type 2. It's type 2 because it's 1. Because the number we're given for girls is the same as the percent. It's about girls. 20 is what percent of 50? We have to make a fraction. What number do we put on the bottom?
50.
50 on the bottom and 20 on the top. We can reduce that by 10 and we get 2/5, which is the same as how much percent?
40%.
20 is
40%.
percent of 50. What percent are girls?
40%.
"37 and 1/2% of the children in the class are girls. There are 20 boys. How many children are there in the class?" Which type of problem is this?
3 curveball.
That's right. 3 curveball. It's type 3 because we need to know the whole thing. How many are in the class? And it's a curveball because the percent that we're given is about girls and the number we're given is about boys. When we have a type 3 curveball, we have to handle the curveball first. If 37 and 1/2% are girls, what percent are boys? What we're looking for is the curveball opposite of 37 and 1/2%. And by that I mean if we have 100% for the whole thing and we were to take away 37.5%, how many would be left? And we said that we should be able to memorize those. Let's look at our memory chart. We know that 37.5% comes from 3/8. In order to have 8/8, which is 100%, we would need 5/8 more. That's 62.5%. So 62.5% is what we'd like to call the curveball opposite of 37.5%. Just like 87.5% and 12.5% are opposites one to another because they add up to 100%. So we know that we need to use 62.5%. And 20 is 62.5% of what? 20 equals, and what fraction does 62.5% come from?
5/8.
5/8 of x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
8 over 5, 8 over 5. These cancel out, and on this side we are left with
X.
5 into 5 is
1.
5 into 20.
4.
8 times 4 is
32.
32 equals x. 20 is 62.5% of
32.
how many children are there in the class?
32.
60 children in the class. 40 boys. What percent are girls? What type problem is this one?
2 curveball.
2 curveball. 2 because it says what percent. Curveball because we're given the information about the boys, but we're asked about the girls. In a type 2 curveball problem, we can handle the curveball either before or after the problem. Let's do it at the end this time. 40 is what percent of 60? We have to make a fraction on the bottom.
60.
60 on the bottom, 40 on the top. We begin to reduce it like that, and now we can reduce it some more. What number can we hit both the 4 and the 6 with?
2.
And we get 2/3. How much percent is that?
66 and 2/3%.
66 and 2/3%. 66 and 2/3. Now we need to be careful. 66 and 2/3% of the class is which? Boys or girls?
Boy.
Boys, because we use the number 40. So, our girls, we need to find out that curveball opposite for 66 and 2/3%. How much is it?
33 and 1/3%.
33 and 1/3% are girls, and that's our answer. If we were to add these two numbers up, we would get 100%, just as 2/3 plus 1/3 is 3/3, or the whole thing. "83 and 1/3% of the children are boys, and there are 20 boys. How many children in the class? Which type of problem is this one?
3.
Type 3, because you're asked how many in the whole thing, and it's not a curveball because the percent you're given is about boys, and so is the number that you're given. Just write down your number sentence. 20 is 83 and 1/3% of what? 20 equals what fraction does 83 and 1/3% come from?
5, 6.
5, 6, x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
6 over 5. 6 over 5. These cancel out and leave us
X.
5 into 5 is
1.
5 into 20.
4.
6 times 4.
24.
20 is 83 and 1/3% of
24.
how many children in the class?
24.
25 children in the class. 20% are girls. How many girls? What type of problem is this one?
1.
Type 1. You know the percent. You know the whole thing. You need to find the part of the whole. The percent is about girls and the question is about girls, so it's not a curveball. 20% of 25 is what? From what fraction do we get 20%?
1/5.
1/5 times 25 over 1 equals x. 5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 25?
5.
1 times 5 is?
5.
5 equals x. 20% of 25 is?
5.
How many girls?
5.
5. "33 and 1/3% of the children in the class are girls. There are 50 boys. How many girls?" Here we have a hidden question. What is it?
How many children in the class?
Yes, how many children? That question is asking how many in the whole class. So what type of problem is that?
3 curveball.
Type 3 because it's asking the whole thing, and you've noticed that it's a curveball because the percent talks about girls and the other information talks about boys. Type 3 curveball. And in a type 3 curveball problem, you have to handle the curveball first. We need to find out 100%, take away 33 and 1/3%, or to know the curveball opposite of 33 and 1/3%, which is what?
62 and 1/2%.
Almost, but not quite. 66 and 2/3%. Because 33 and 1/3% comes from 1/3, and 66 and 2/3% comes from 2/3, and that together adds up to 1, or 100%. 50 is 66 and 2/3% of what? 50 equals 2/3 of x. We have to multiply both sides of the equation by the
Flip-flop.
which is 3/2, or 3 over 2. These cancel away, and we are left on this side with
X.
2 into 2 is
1.
2 into 50.
25.
What is 25 times 3?
75.
75 equals x. 50 is 66 and 2/3% of How many children in the class?
75.
If there are 75 in the class and 50 are boys, how many are girls? 25. 75, take away 50 is 25. (16 2/3% of the children in the class are girls, and there are 8 girls. How many boys? What is the hidden question?
How many children in the class?
How many children? And because we need to know how many children, which is the whole thing, this is a type number
3.
Type number 3. And it's not a curveball because the percent talks about girls and the other information also talks about girls. 8 is 16 2/3% of what? 8 equals. From what fraction do we get 16 2/3%?
1/6.
1/6 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
6 over 1, and here we'll just write the 6. These cancel away, and we are left on this side with
X.
6 times 8 is
48.
8 is 16 2/3% of
48.
how many children in the class?
48.
If there are 48 children and 8 are girls, how many are boys?
40.
40 boys. Now take the test on the next page in your booklet. Now we're going to do story problems dealing with the percent of increase or decrease. In these problems, you will have types 1, 2, and 3, but you no longer need to think about whether there's a curveball. Let's look at the first one. This year, there are 10. Last year, there were 8. What is the percent of increase? Well, an increase is a change when something gets
Larger.
Last year was 8. This year is 10. How much is the change? 2. 10 take away 8 is 2. The difference is 2. 2 is what percent of, and we have to decide what number belongs here. And the rule is that percents of increase and decrease are always figured using the original number. Which of these is the original? This year or last year?
Last year.
So you all agree that last year comes before this year. So we'll use the number for last year, 8. That is the original. Now we have to make a fraction. The number that we put on the bottom is the one that comes after the word of. In this case, the original. So what number should I put on the bottom?
8.
And on the top,
2.
2/8 can be reduced to,
1/4.
which is how much percent?
25%.
25%. 2 is 25% of 8. What is the percent of increase?
25%.
This problem was a what percent problem, and so it was type 2. This month 8, last month 12. What is the percent of decrease? A decrease is a change when something gets.
Smaller.
This is a what percent problem, so it is type
2.
last month 12, this month 8. How much was the decrease? What do I have to do with these two numbers?
Subtract.
And we get
4.
4. The decrease is 4. 4 is what percent of, and we use the number that is the original. Which is the original? This month or last month?
Last month.
And so I should use the number
12.
4 is what percent of 12? Which number do I put on the bottom of my fraction?
12.
And the 4 on top. 4/12 can be reduced to,
1/3.
which is how much percent?
33 1/3%.
4 is 33 1/3% of 12. What is the percent of decrease?
33 1/3%.
A type 2 problem. In October, there were 16. In November, there are 14. What is the percent of decrease? What type of problem is this?
2.
Type 2 because it's what percent? How much is the decrease?
2.
2. 16 take away 14 is 2. 2 is what percent of? Should I use the 16 or the 14?
16.
The 16 is the original because October came before November. 2 is what percent of 16? I make a fraction. What number do I put on the bottom?
16.
And on the top?
2.
That reduces to what?
1/8.
1/8, which is how much percent?
12 1/2%.
2 is 12 1/2% of 16. What is the percent of decrease?
12 1/2%.
This year, 12. Next year, 16. What is the percent of increase? This problem is type
2.
because it's another what percent problem. How much is the increase?
4.
4. 16 take away 12 is 4. 4 is what percent of, and which number should I use, the 12 or the 16?
The 12.
The 12. I'm going to use the 12 because that is the original. Does everyone agree that this year came before next year?
Yes.
I need to make a fraction. What number goes on the bottom?
12.
Because it comes after the word of. It represents the original. It's like the whole thing. 4/12 reduces to what?
1/3.
1/3, which is how much percent?
33 1/3%.
4 is 33 1/3% of 12. What is the percent of increase?
33 1/3%.
The old was 40. The new is 100. What is the percent of increase? This problem is type
2.
because it's a what percent problem. How much is the increase?
60.
60. 100 take away 40 is 60. We subtract those two numbers to find the difference between them. The increase is 60. 60 is what percent of, and what number do we use there?
40.
40, because 40 is the original. We all agree that the old came before the new. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. What number do I put on the bottom?
40.
40 on the bottom, 60 on the top. We have to put 40 on the bottom because it comes after the word.
Of.
We can reduce this fraction just like that, and then we see it is an improper fraction. Let's divide the bottom into the top. 4 into 6 is
1.
1 times 4.
4.
Subtract and get
2.
2 what?
2/4.
And 1 2/4 can be reduced to 1 and
1/2.
1 and 1/2. How much percent is 1 and 1/2?
150%.
Because the 1 is worth how much percent?
100.
And the 1/2 is worth how much percent?
50%.
And altogether we got 150%. 60 is 150% of 40. What is the percent of increase?
150%.
So, as we promised before, we finally have had a story problem which used a percent that was more than 100%. And we will be seeing more of those, especially in problems involving percent of increase and decrease. Last year, 20, we have an increase of 25%. How many this year? Do we know the percent?
Yes.
So that tells us that it is not type
2.
Do we know the original?
Yes.
Yes, we do, because last year came before this year, and we know that last year is 20. And knowing the original is like knowing the whole thing. So now we know that this problem is not type
3.
It's not type 3. And it's not type 2. So it's going to be type
1.
Type 1. 25% of 20 is what? And now that you see the number sentence, you can even more clearly see that it is type 1. You know the percent, you know the whole thing, and you're looking for a part of the whole. 25% comes from what fraction?
1/4.
1/4 times 20 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
4 into 4 is?
1.
4 into 20 is?
5.
1 times 5 is?
5.
5 equals x. We are told that the increase is 25% of what we had last year. 25% of 20 is 5. That is the increase. That is the change. That is by how much it became larger. If last year it was 20 and it had an increase of 5, how much is it this year? What do we do with those two numbers?
Subtract.
Let's look. Last year was 20. It increased by 5. What do we do with those two numbers to show what we have now? It's an increase. You have to add. It used to be 20, it increased by 5, and now you have 25 this year. So it's very important that you not only get a feel for whether it's type 1, type 2, or type 3, but that you really understand what is going on and what is meant by increase and decrease and whether it has gotten larger or smaller. So the answer to how many this year is
25.
25. Yesterday there were 50. That has decreased by 20%. How many today? Do you know the percent?
Yes.
Do you know the original?
Yes.
Therefore, this problem is type
1.
Type 1. Very good. 20% of 50 is what? What is 20% as a fraction in lowest terms?
1/5.
Times 50 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 50?
20.
5 into 50 is 10. 1 times 10
10.
equals x. 20% of 50 is 10. Is 10 the final answer to this problem?
No.
No. 10 is the decrease. We were told that there was a decrease of 20% of the original. And we found that the decrease is 10. If yesterday we have 50, and that has decreased by 10. What do we do with those two numbers to find out what we have now?
Subtract.
We subtract. 50 take away 10 is?
40.
We started yesterday with 50. It decreased by 10, and today we have 40. How many today?
40.
40. Very good. Today, 56. An increase of 37.5%. How many tomorrow? Do we know the percent?
Yes.
Do we know the original?
Yes.
Yes, we do, because today comes before tomorrow. So, what type problem is this one?
1.
Type 1. 37.5% of 56 is what? What fraction is 37.5%?
3/8.
3/8 a memory percent. Times 56 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
8 into 8 is?
1.
8 into 56 is?
7.
3 times 7 is?
21.
21 equals x. How shall I label that number? 21 is the?
Increase.
It is the increase. It is not what we will have tomorrow, but it is how much it has changed. Today, we have 56. It increases by 21. What do I do with those two numbers to find out what we have tomorrow?
Add.
We add them. 6 plus 1 is 7. 5 plus 2 is 7. 77 is the answer, and the increase was 21. In September, there were 36. There was a decrease of 33.1/3%. How many in October? What type problem is this one?
1.
Type 1. We see that we know the percent and we know the original because September comes before October. (33.1/3%) of 36 is what? What fraction is 33.1/3%?
1/3.
Times 36 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
3 into 3 is?
1.
3 into 36.
12.
12. 1 times 12
12.
equals x. How shall I label 12?
Decrease.
Decrease. The decrease is 12 because there was a decrease of 33.1/3% of 36. We started with 36 and we had a decrease of 12. What do I do with those two numbers?
Subtract.
Decrease means subtract. And we get 24. How many in October?
24.
24. Before, there were 40. It has increased 120%. How many now? What type problem is this one?
1.
Type 1. We know the percent and we know the original. 120% of 40 is what? 120%. Well, 100% gives us what number?
1.
And 20% gives us what fraction?
1/5.
So, if you can see that, you can save a step or two. Let's change this to an improper fraction. 5 times 1 is
5.
plus 1,
6.
6 fifths. 6 fifths of 40 equals x. And we'll change the of 2 times 40 over 1. Can we cancel?
Yes.
5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 40 is?
8.
6 times 8 is?
48.
48 equals x. Is that the final answer to our problem?
No.
No, it's just the increase. It's not what we have now. We started before with 40. We have increased 48 more than that. What do I do with these two numbers?
Add.
0 plus 8 is 8. 4 plus 4 is 8. That is what we have now. In here, we can put the 48. But how many do we have now?
88.
88. This year, 12. There was a decrease of 20%. How many last year? Do we know the percent?
Yes.
Do we know the original?
No.
No, we don't. We know what we have this year, but we need to find out what we had last year. That's the original. So what type is this problem?
3.
Type 3. Now we have to be very careful. What we originally had was 100% of itself. And we have to decrease that by 20%. Therefore, what we have left after that is only 80% of the original. And what we have left is what we have this year. So, in this type 3 problem, you have to either subtract the decrease or add the increase first. Then we can say 12 is 80% of what? 12 equals what fraction?
4/5.
4/5 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
5/4. 5 over 4. These cancel away, and on this side we are left with
X.
4 into 4 is
1.
4 into 12 is
3.
5 times 3 is,
15.
and that is our final answer. There isn't any extra step. We did the extra step first. 12 is 80% of
15.
how many last year?
15.
Very good. Now we have 40 because of an increase of 25% of what we had before. How many did we have before? What type of problem is this one?
3.
Type 3, because we need to find out the original, what we had before. Now the original was 100% of itself, and it has now increased by 25%. What do I do with those two numbers?
Add.
We have to add them because it's an increase, and we get 125%. What we have now, 40, is 125% of what we had before. 40 equals 125%. The 100% comes from the number
1.
and the 25% comes from
1/4.
4 times 1 is
4.
plus 1 is
5.
5/4. 40 is 5/4 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
flip-flop. 4/5. 4/5. These cancel away, and we are left on this side with,
X.
can we cancel?
Yes.
5 into 5 is
1.
5 into 40,
8.
8 times 4,
32.
32 equals x. 40 is 125% of
32.
how many before?
32.
We started with 32 as the original. It increased by 25%, so that now we have 40. Today, 105, after a decrease of 30%. How many yesterday, and how many more yesterday than today? This one has 2 questions, but you'll see we have to answer this one first. What type problem is this?
3.
It is type 3, because you want to find out the original, what you had yesterday. Of course, the original was 100% of itself, and you are decreasing it by 30%. So what you have now is 70%. 105 is 70% of what? 105 equals what fraction does that come from?
7/10.
7/10 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
10 over 7 and 10 over 7. These cancel away, and we are left with,
X.
let's see if we can cancel 7 into 105. 7 into 10 goes
1.
1 times 7,
7.
subtract, get,
3.
and bring down the 5. 7 into 35,
5.
times 7,
35.
it came out even as 15. 7 into 7 is
1.
7 into 105,
15.
15 times 10.
150.
150, just add a 0 onto the 15 because you're multiplying by 10. 105 is 70% of 150, and that's what we had yesterday. How many more yesterday than today? Yesterday, 150. Today, 105. What do we do with those two numbers?
Subtract.
Subtract. 150 take away 105 is 45. How many more yesterday than today?
45.
45. This week, 48, after a decrease of 25%. How many more last week than this week? This problem is very much like the one that you just did, except that we have a hidden question because I haven't given you that question this time. But what is the hidden question?
How many last week?
How many last week? Because if you know what we have this week, you can't figure out the difference between this week and last week unless you know what we had last week. So this is the question we have to deal with first. Which type of problem is this one?
3.
3, because as we've just said, we need to find out the original. A type 3 problem. The original was 100% of itself, and we have a decrease of 25%. What do I have to do with those two numbers?
Subtract.
Subtract because it's a decrease. And what is 100 take away 25?
75%.
75%. So the 48 that we have this week is 75% of what we had last week. 48 equals what fraction?
3/4.
3/4 x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
4/3, 4/3. These cancel away, and we are left on this side with
X.
3 will go into 48. 3 into 48, you will see that we come out with 16. 3 into 3 is
1.
3 into 48.
16.
16 times 4 is 64. 64 equals x. 48 is 75% of
64.
how many last week?
64.
64 last week. 48 this week. What do we do with those two numbers to find out the difference between last week and this week?
Subtract.
Subtract. 4 take away 8, can't do. 6 becomes a,
5.
for the 4 to become a,
14.
14 take away 8.
6.
5 take away 4,
1.
16 is the difference. How many more last week than this week?
16.
Very, very good. Tomorrow, 49. After an increase of 40%, from today. How many today? What type of problem is this one?
3.
Type 3 because we need to find out how many today. The original. The original was 100% of itself. It has been increased by 40%. What do I do with those two numbers?
Subtract.
Add, because it is an increase. 100 plus 40 is 140%. So what we have tomorrow, 49, is 140% of what we have today. And that's what we need to find out. 49 equals 140%. Let's move back 2 places and we get 1.4. Please read that number.
1 4/10.
Which can be reduced to 1 and
2/5.
1 and 2/5. Perhaps you could have seen that right away, knowing that the 100% came from 1 and the 40% came from 2/5. 1 and 2/5. Let's change that to an improper fraction. 5 times 1 is
5.
plus 2,
7.
7/5. 49 equals 7/5 x. What do we need to do with both sides of that equation? Multiply it by the
Flip-flop.
flip-flop, or 5/7. 5 over 7. These cancel out, and we are left on this side with
X.
7 into 7 is
1.
7 into 49.
7.
7 times 5.
35.
35 equals x. 49 is 140% of 35. How many today?
35.
Tomorrow is 49. Today is 35. What do I do with those two numbers in order to find out the difference?
Subtract.
We subtract, and we get 14. How many more tomorrow than today?
14.
14. This week there are 88. That's after an increase of 10%. How many more this week than last week? This problem is just like the one before it, except that I have not provided you with what is now a hidden question. What is the hidden question?
How many last week?
How many last week? And we have to find out how many that there were last week before we can find out how many more this week than last week. And since that's what we need to find, what type of problem is this?
3.
Type 3. The original was 100% of itself, and now we have an increase of 10%. What do we do with those two numbers?
Add.
We add them because it is an increase, and we get 110%. What we have now this week, 88, is 110% of what we had last week. 88 equals Now we have here 110%. What number do we get from the 100%?
1.
And what fraction do we get from the 10%?
1/10.
1/10. Let's change that to an improper fraction. 10 times 1 is
10.
plus 1,
11.
11 tenths. 88 equals 11 tenths of x. We have to multiply both sides by the
Flip-flop.
which is 10 elevenths, or 10 over 11. These cancel out, and on this side we are left with just plain old x. And on the other side, can we cancel the 11 and the 88?
Yes.
11 into 11 is
1.
11 into 88.
Negative. 8.
8. And what is 10 times 8?
80.
80. 80 equals x. 88 is 110% of
80.
how many last week?
80.
Last week we had 80. This week we have 88. We have to find the difference, so we have to subtract. And what is the difference?
8.
8. 88 take away 80 is 8, and that tells us how many more this week than last week. These next two problems are a little bit different than the others you have done so far, but I think you'll find that they're not difficult at all. Last year there were 20. There's an increase so that we have 5 more this year than last year. What is the percent of increase? What type of problem is this one?
2.
Of course, it's type 2 because it is a what percent problem. Do we know the increase?
Yes.
How much is the increase?
25. 5.
The increase is 5. 5 more this year than last year. Do we know the original?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Last year comes before this year. So we have both the change and the original. We don't have to have any other information to find out the percent of increase. We just say 5 is what percent of 20? We have to make a fraction. What number do we put on the bottom?
20.
Because it comes after the word of. And on top we have 5. Can we reduce it?
Yes.
We can use 5. 5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 20 is?
4.
1/4 equals how much percent?
25%.
25%. 5 is 25% of 20. And what is the percent of increase?
25%.
Very good. This week, 120. We've had an increase such that we have 40 more this week than we had last week. What is the percent of increase? What type of problem is this?
2.
It's type 2 because it's a what percent problem. Now, in order to find out the percent of increase, we need to know the change and the original. Do we know the change?
Yes.
Yes, the change is an increase of 40. Do we know the original?
No.
No, we don't, but we can figure it out. Last week, this week, we have 120. That is after an increase of 40. What do we do with those two numbers in order to find out what we had before?
Subtract.
We subtract. And you see that we had 80 last week, the increase was 40, and that's why we have 120 now. The increase is 40. 40 is what percent of 80? 80 is the original. We have to make a fraction. What number do we put on the bottom?
80.
80 is on the bottom and 40 is on the top. We begin to reduce it like that, and then we can hit both top and bottom with
4.
4 into 4 is
1.
4 into 8 is
2.
1/2 equals how much percent?
50%.
50%. 40 is 50% of 80. What is the percent of increase?
50%.
50%. The following problems in your booklet are the same problems that we've just done, only they are presented in a different order, so that you have to really be able to know which type of problem is each one. You can do them for practice, or when you think you're ready, you can take them as a test. And if you get in any kind of trouble or need to find out the right answers, just watch again the same section of the video that we've just done. But understand that the problems are all mixed up and in a different order. There are several different types or applications of percent of increase or decrease problems. We could do problems in profit or loss. We could do problems in commission. We could do problems in interest. But we're only going to do one more kind, and that is problems of discount. Here's the first one. The original price was 50 moneys, but the sale price was only 40 moneys. That means that they made the price lower for you. What was the percent of discount? When they made the price lower, that's called a discount. It's the name of a special kind of decrease when the price is decreased. What type problem is this one?
2.
It's type 2 because it's a what percent problem. In order to do a type 2 problem, you have to know the change and the original. Do we know the original?
Yes.
Do we know the change, the actual amount of the discount?
No.
But we can find out. The original price was 50. What you actually had to pay was 40. We need to know the difference between those two numbers. What do we do with those two numbers to find out?
Subtract.
We subtract, and we get 10. The price was lowered by 10 moneys. It started as 50, they took away 10, and you had to pay 40. Now we know both the change and the original. 10 is what percent of 50? We have to make a fraction with those two numbers. Which number goes on the bottom?
50.
50, because it comes after the word of. 10 is on the top. We begin to cancel like that, and we have 1/5, which is how much percent?
20%.
20%. 10 is 20% of 50. So how much is the percent of discount?
20%.
20%. The original price was 80 moneys. You were given a 25% discount. How much was the discount? Do you know the percent in this problem?
Yes.
Do you know the original price?
Yes.
Therefore, this is what type problem?
1.
This is a type 1 problem. You know the original, so it's not type 3. You know the percent, so it's not type 2. 25% of the 80 moneys is what? 25% is what fraction?
1/4.
Times 80 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
4 into 4 is?
1.
4 into 80?
20.
20. 1 times 20 is?
20.
Which equals x. So 25% of 80 is 20. And how much was the discount?
20.
It was 20. They took 20 monies off the price because they took 25% of the price away as a discount. The original price was 75 moneys. We have a 33 1/3% discount. What was the sale price? Which means how much do we actually have to pay? Well, there's a hidden question here, something we have to find out first. What is the hidden question?
How much is the discount?
How much is the discount? Well, if we want to find out the discount, what type of problem is it going to be?
1.
Type 1. We know the original price. That tells us that it is not type,
3.
and we know the discount. That tells us that it is not type,
2.
so it has to be type 1. 33 1/3% of 75 is what? What fraction is 33 1/3%?
1/3.
1/3 times 75 over 1 equals x. 3 into 3 is?
1.
3 into 75?
25.
25. I thought you'd all know that in your heads, but we'll do it over here. 3 into 75. 3 into 7 goes?
1.
2 times 3?
6.
7 take away 6?
1.
Bring down the 5. 3 into 15.
5.
5 times 3?
15.
And there's our answer of 25. 1 times 25 is?
25.
25 equals x. 33 1/3% of 75 is?
25.
And the answer to our hidden question, how much is the discount?
25.
25. Now, if the original price was 75 and they take away, give us a discount of 25, how much will we actually have to pay?
50.
50. 50 monies is the sale price. The sale price is 60 monies. The discount was 20%. What was the original price? What type problem is this one?
3.
This is type 3 because we need to find the original. Now, the original price was 100% of itself, but we have a discount of 20%. What do I do with those two numbers to find out what percent of the original the sale price is?
Subtract.
We subtract. 100% take away 20% is?
80%.
80%. So the sale price, what we now have to pay, 60, is 80% of the original price. 60 equals what fraction for 80%?
4/5.
4/5 x. We have to multiply both sides of the equation by the,
Flip flop.
which is 5/4. 5/4. These cancel away, and on this side we're left with just
X.
4 into 4 is
1.
4 into 60.
20.
Not exactly. Try again. 15. 4 into 60. 4 into 6 is
1.
1 times 4.
4.
6 take away 4.
2.
Bring down the 0. 4 into 20.
5.
5 times 4.
20.
So 4 into 60 was 15. Now we have to do 15 times 5. 5 times 5 is?
25.
Carry the 2. 1 times 5
5.
plus 2.
7.
75 equals x. 60 is 80% of,
75.
and what was the original price?
75.
The original price was 120 monies. We had a discount of 20 monies. What was the percent of discount? Which type problem is this one?
2.
It's type 2 because it's a what percent problem? Do we know the original?
Yes.
And do we know the discount?
Yes.
So we know both things that we need to figure out the percent of discount. We have the change and the original. 20 is what percent of 120? We have to make a fraction. Which number do we put on the bottom?
120.
And the 20 goes on top. We can cancel like that, and we can also reduce it some more by using 2. 2 into 2 is?
1.
And 2 into 12 is?
6.
That's a memory percent. How much percent is 1/6? sixth?
16 2/3%.
20 is 16 2/3% of 120. So what was the percent of discount?
16 2/3%.
The sale price is 150 monies. That was after a discount of 50 monies. What was the percent of discount? Which type of problem is this one?
2.
It's type 2 because it's a what percent problem. In order to figure out what percent, we need to know the change, in this case it's called the discount, and we need to know the original. Do we know the discount?
Yes.
It is 50. 50 is what percent of? Do we know the original?
No.
No, we don't, but we can figure it out. We know that the sale price is 150, and that was after a discount of 50. What do we do with those two numbers in order to find the original?
Add.
Yes, we add them up. 150 plus 50 is
200.
200. It was originally 200. We had a discount of 50, and we only had to pay 150. 50 is what percent of 200? Very good. We have to make a fraction. What number should we put on the bottom?
200.
And the 50 goes on top. We reduce like that. We have 5/20ths. We can hit each one with 5. 5 into 5 is?
1.
5 into 20 is?
4.
1/4 is how much percent?
25%.
50 is 25% of 200. What was the percent of discount?
25%.
25%. These last 6 problems are the same types of discount problems that you've just seen on the video. And you should probably try them on your own first before watching. So if you haven't done them, pause your video and give them a try first. The original price was 50 monies. You have a 10% discount. What was the sale price? This problem has a hidden question. What is it?
How much was the discount?
How much was the discount? Because you have to know what the discount is before you find the sale price. What type of problem is this one?
3. 1.
Some say 3, some say 1. Let's find out. Do we have the original price?
Yes.
That tells us that it is not.
3.
All right. Do we have the discount percent?
Yes.
So it's not.
2.
So yes, it is 1. Type 1 problem to find how much was the discount. 10% of 50 is what? What fraction is 10%?
1/10.
Times 50 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
10 into 10 is?
1.
10 into 50?
5.
1 times 5 is?
5.
5 equals X. 5 is the discount. 10% of 50 is 5. How much was the discount?
5.
The original price was 50. The discount was 5. What do we do with those two numbers to find the sale price?
Subtract.
50 take away 5 is 45. So what was the sale price?
45.
Yes, 45 monies. The sale price is 90 monies after a discount of 25%. What was the original price? Which type of problem is this one?
3.
Yes, it's type 3 because you need to find the original. Now the original was 100% of itself, but we have a discount of 25%. What do I do with those two numbers?
Subtract.
And I get how much?
75%.
Because the sale price that we now have of 90 is 75% of the original price which we want to find out. 90 equals, what fraction is 75%?
3/4.
3/4 of x. We have to multiply both sides of the equation by the,
Flip-flop.
which is 4/3. 4 over 3. These cancel away, and on this side we're left with
X.
3 into 3 is
1.
3 into 90.
30.
And 30 times 4,
120.
yes, 30 times 4 is 120. 120 equals x. 90 is 75% of 120. What was the original price?
120.
Yes, 120 monies was the original price. The original price was 36 monies. We had a discount of 16 2/3%. How much was the discount? Which type of problem is this one?
1.
It's a type 1 problem. 16 2/3% of 36 is what? What fraction is 16 2/3%?
1/6.
1/6, one of your memory percents, times 36 over 1 equals x. Can we cancel?
Yes.
6 into 6 is
1.
6 into 36.
6.
1 times 6 is
6.
6 equals x. 16 2/3% of 36 is 6. So how much was the discount?
6.
The discount was 6. The original price was 80 monies. There was a discount of 10 monies. What was the percent of discount? What kind of problem is this one?
2.
It's type 2 because it's a what percent problem. We need to have the discount and the original. Do we have the discount?
Yes.
10 is what percent of, do we have the original?
Yes.
of 80. We have to make a fraction. What number is on the bottom?
80.
80 on the bottom, 10 on the top, and we have 1/8. What percent is 1/8?
12.5%.
Yes, that's one of your memory percents. 10 is 12 and 1/2% of 80. So what was the percent of discount?
12.5%.
12.5%. The original price was 240 moneys. The sale price was 180 moneys. What was the percent of discount? Which type of problem is this one?
2.
A type 2 problem because it's what percent? We need to know both the discount and the original. Do we know the discount?
No.
No, we don't, but we can figure it out. If the original price was 240, but the sale price, what we actually had to pay, was 180, what do I do with those two numbers to find out by how much the price was reduced?
Subtract.
We subtract. 0 take away 0 is 0. 4 take away 8.
Can't do.
The 2 becomes a 1 to make the 4 a 14. 14 take away 8.
6.
The discount was 60. 60 is what percent of, and what number do I put there?
240.
240 because that's the original. Now I have to make a fraction. What is my bottom number?
240.
And my top number is 60. I have 6/24. I can hit top and bottom with 6. 6 into 6 is
1.
6 into 24,
4.
and that is how much percent?
25%.
25%. 60 is 25% of 240. What was the percent of discount?
25%.
25%. The sale price was 175 moneys after a discount of 25 moneys. What was the percent of discount? Which type of problem is this one?
2.
Type 2 because it's a what percent problem. To find the percent of discount, we need to know both the discount and the original. Do we know the discount?
Yes.
The discount is 25 moneys. 25 is what percent of? Do we know the original?
No.
No, we don't, but we can figure it out. The sale price was 175. That was after a discount of 25. What do we do with those two numbers to find the original price?
Add.
We add them up. And how much is 175 plus 25?
200.
200. So the original price is 200. Now we have to make a fraction. What is our bottom number?
200.
200. And the top number is 25. We can hit both top and bottom with 25. How many 25s in 25?
1.
And how many in 200?
8.
8. There's 4 in each hundred, and we have 200s. 1/8 is how much percent?
12 and 1/2%.
12 and 1/2%, a memory percent. 25 is
12 and 1/2%.
of 200. So what was the percent of discount?
12 and 1/2%.
Well, there's just one more question I want to ask you. Did all of that make sense?
Yes!
Good. Don't miss the next exciting episode of Uncle Dan's Math, all about geometry. Goodbye. God bless you. We love you.
Golden Age Productions, Golden Age Productions, standing in the gap for your educational needs.